My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old. 3 years ago, I divorced my ex-husband, Jason, due to his infidelity, but just recently, I got remarried. Thanks to my current husband, I'm enjoying life every day. However, being happy now sometimes brings back memories of the tough times. Jason used to act like he was the lord of the manor and treated me like a maid. Even though I was also tired from work, he dumped all the household chores on me. If even a single piece of trash was on the floor, he would yell at me, and he was never satisfied unless there were at least 5 dishes for a meal, leaving the food untouched if he felt I had cut corners in any way. I'll never forget the time he got mad at me for considering make-ahead meals as cutting corners. And then he would crunch on potato chips right after that. Of course, I was the one who had to clean up the crumbs that fell on the floor. Even when I protested, he would snort and say, "What's the point of a wife if she doesn't do the housework?" He kept belittling me with his words, and my self-esteem kept dwindling. He wasn't like this before we got married. Just when I was fed up with this daily life, Jason asked for a divorce. The reason was his affair. He wouldn't tell me who the affair partner was, and I didn't care to know. I was just that exhausted. "Fine. I will divorce you," I said. After agreeing to the divorce, I ended our short 2-year marriage. Come to think of it, I wonder how Nancy is doing. I paused my packing and muttered to myself. Nancy has been my best friend since high school. After the divorce, she listened to me and encouraged me a lot. I should invite Nancy for coffee once I've moved. I've been so busy, I haven't even told her about my remarriage. Since I moved right when I got married due to my husband's job, only my close relatives know about my remarriage. I owe a lot to Nancy, so I must tell her properly. I should focus on the happy moments, not the tough ones. With a change in my mood, I hummed a tune and started packing my belongings again. 2 months after moving in, I was enjoying coffee while browsing through a magazine. Now that I had settled into my new job and gotten used to the area, I started thinking about meeting Nancy for real. Just looking for recommended restaurants and cafes was fun. I need to get in touch with her and check our schedules. It had been a while since we last met, and I was feeling a bit nervous. As I reached for my phone to text Nancy, the intercom rang through the quiet room. Since I had just moved in and didn't know many people, I thought it might be a solicitor, but when I checked, it was a police officer standing there. Could there have been some incident? I wondered, but I answered the door. "A man has reported several instances of stalking by you. Do you know anything about this?" I was at a loss for words at such an unexpected inquiry. Apparently, the man had been receiving letters almost daily, filled with declarations of love and other harassment suggesting romantic intentions. I told them there must be a mistake, as I had just moved to the area, but the complainant had specifically named me, forcing them to verify the claim. I asked who the complainant was, but the officer apologetically responded, "I'm sorry. We're just here to verify due to the repeated complaints. We can't disclose the complainant's name yet." I was puzzled by the statement, but I understood that the police officers were just doing their job. I reassured myself with that thought. After all, since I had done nothing wrong, I just needed to stay confident. In the end, they were convinced that I had just moved in and said, "If we find out anything, we'll come back to report to you." With those words, the police officer left. Afterwards, I dove onto my bed in the bedroom. I kicked my legs in the air and buried my face in the pillow, groaning. The eerie fact that someone had specifically named me brought an indescribable discomfort all over. Why? How come? It's scary, I pondered, and before I knew it, the day was starting to fade. I was thinking of contacting Nancy, but now I'm not in the mood for it anymore. Sighing deeply, I forced my heavy body up to clean the laundry. I was lost in thought about what had happened the day before. After the police left, I talked to my husband when he got home, and he reassured me that it must be some mistake. That helped me regain some energy, but as soon as my husband went to work and I was alone, the gloomy feelings crept back in. That's when it happened. There was a call on my phone from an unregistered number. I could have ignored it, but a bad feeling made me answer the call. "Sarah, long time no talk." I gasped at the familiar voice. It was my ex-husband, Jason. Hearing my silence, Jason sneered. "So, you still haven't admitted to stalking me?" "I'm disappointed in the police. I told them to pin you down properly. Those words instantly made me realize that the incident from yesterday was Jason's doing. You're the one who made that bizarre report to the police, I accused. To my question, Jason simply said a yes, and continued with a baseless claim, you moved here because you still have feelings for me, right? Everyone around me is shocked. His usual overconfidence was infuriating, especially knowing he was probably smirking over the phone. And from his words, it seemed he was spreading rumors that I was stalking him. Me, stalking Jason? That's a joke. The painful memories of the past resurfaced, and I struggled to remain calm as anger rose within me. It's been 3 years since we divorced, what are you talking about? Besides, I'm remarried. Jason just laughed, as if my firm statement was a lie. If the police can't handle this, we'll have to settle it directly, he said, proposing a meeting to discuss. The location was a diner. Fine. I have nothing to hide, after all. Angry, I decided to respond to the summons and headed to the diner. Looking back, I regret acting so hastily. When I arrived at the diner, Jason was waiting at the entrance. He was wearing a suit that even I could tell was expensive, a change from the past. Sarah, haven't you become more beautiful? I could smell his cologne as Jason scrutinized me, making me uncomfortable. Cut it out, I said, frowning. Jason just shrugged. Still as charmless as ever, I see. Swallowing the words, mind your own business, I followed Jason inside. We headed to a table he had already reserved, and to my shock, there was someone unexpected sitting there. Nancy, why are you here? Yes, it was my best friend, Nancy, sitting there. Jason and Nancy exchanged smirks at my surprised reaction. Me and Nancy got hitched. Don't go getting jealous just because I look happy, he said, wrapping an arm around Nancy. On his wrist was an ostentatious luxury watch that looked out of place. Oh, this? I'm running my own company now. Thanks to Nancy, of course. After divorcing me, he got engaged to Nancy and, with her parents' help, started his own company. Apparently, the business is doing well and has become stable. To be honest, I couldn't care less about that. The word got hitched echoed in my ears. Nancy, knowing what I went through, married this man? I was bewildered. When you invited me to your wedding, I was shocked. How could someone as wonderful as Jason marry you? I've always disliked you, Sarah. Everyone was always talking about you, even though you weren't that cute. So I pretended to be your best friend, thinking I'd eventually bring you down. Nancy smiled unabashedly and said, every time I met Jason, we joked about how we got the order of meeting wrong. I felt nauseous seeing Nancy happily leaning on Jason. Nancy had been there for me after my divorce, listening silently to all I had gone through. She must have been listening with the same malicious grin she was wearing now. Nancy, with a smug expression, began her story. She confessed to falling in love with Jason at my wedding. She had secretly given him her contact details that day and made her move, and Jason quickly became smitten with her too. What was worse, Nancy had egged Jason on to mentally abuse me. No wonder Jason's personality seemed to change abruptly after we got married. I was oblivious to the fact that they had been enjoying my suffering all along. Nancy boasted, since you wouldn't give up, eventually it took about 2 years to get Jason. As if tired from all the talking, Nancy sipped her orange juice through a straw. It was too shocked to say a word to Nancy. Now, to the main point, can you stop following Jason around? I was surprised to see you the other day. But moving here just to stalk Jason after 3 years of divorce is creepy. Unlike you, we're enjoying a happy and loving marriage. So just give up already. From Nancy's tone, it seemed she had already guessed that I moved to this area after she saw me. Moreover, Nancy was convinced that I had moved here to stalk Jason. At this point, whether they believed me or not didn't matter. My mind was elsewhere. I was struggling not to lash out at them in anger. I'm not stalking anyone, and I have no interest in such a man, I stated firmly and stood up from my seat. Nancy's laughter followed me, but I didn't look back. Nearly 2 months later, I received a call from Jason. Expecting this, I answered the phone. Jason sounded panicked, and I couldn't help but smirk. There was no need to ask, did something happen? It seems you were indeed a victim of stalking, but the perpetrator wasn't me, it was your current affair partner. Turns out, Jason, true to form, had cheated on Nancy as well. His casual fling had made the affair partner turn into a stalker. This was the truth. Jason, flustered by my words, explained the situation, mixing in excuses. It turns out Jason knew all along that the stalking was the work of his affair partner. However, if Nancy found out and it led to a divorce, he would lose the support of her parents. Hearing Nancy talk about me moving to this area, he saw an opportunity to divert her attention by framing me as the stalker. Apparently, it was Nancy's idea to specifically name me in the police report and to summon me to the diner, and Jason felt he couldn't refuse. Layering lies upon lies, typical Jason ended up in this mess. I shouldn't have treated you like a stalker. But there was no need for this. Jason cried out in anguish over the phone. He was in the midst of chaos. I could hear banging on a door and a woman's voice, likely Nancy's, in the background. Given the situation, he must be barricaded in his own room. It's a pitiful sight. I merely told Nancy the truth as a favor to my former best friend, I said. What Jason referred to as this was probably me sending Nancy a certain photo. Along with a note saying, I'll be requesting damages, thank you. The photo showed Jason's current affair partner in the act of stalking and the two of them entering a hotel together. I was surprised you'd go to a hotel while being harassed, I said, incredulously. Jason responded, I had no choice. She threatened to go directly to Nancy and demand a divorce if I didn't meet her. The reason I had such photos at hand was all thanks to my husband. My current husband actually works as a detective. He had just opened his own office, and we moved to this area for that reason. But who would have thought his first case would involve my ex-husband? It's a complicated and somewhat guilty feeling. Within a month, my husband found the real stalker of Jason and also secured evidence of his affair. I couldn't be more grateful. Oh, by the way, I'll be suing you and Nancy for damages, I informed Jason. He let out a dumbfounded, what? You knew who the perpetrator was, yet you falsely reported me to the police for stalking? And then you spread that rumor around, how malicious. I pointed out. No. Jason struggled to find words, as I seized the moment to press further. Just when I thought I could finally forget our marriage. You've reopened old wounds. You will definitely pay for this. After hearing his pathetic sobbing, a loud commotion and a woman's angry shout came through the phone. It seemed Nancy had broken down the door to enter the room. I could faintly hear her accusing him of whispering to someone, and then the voice on the phone switched to Nancy's. It appeared she had snatched the phone from him. Who are you, some stalker woman? She demanded. No, it's Sarah, I corrected. Upon realizing he was talking to me, Nancy's tone didn't calm down as one might expect. Instead, she continued to rant emotionally. It seemed she was furious about the damages demanded by me. Why should I pay damages now of all times? She fumed. I relayed to Nancy exactly what the lawyer, recommended by my husband, had taught me. I was embarrassed so bad by the false rumor spread by Jason and Nancy. I've just informed Jason that I'll be suing you too for defamation, I added. Nancy was almost in tears. You money grubber. Don't take my happiness away, she cried. What goes around comes around, I replied coolly. She had targeted Jason out of jealousy and conspired against me. After the divorce, she pretended to be a good friend while secretly mocking me. I could never forgive them. I won't pay any damages, she declared defiantly. When I was summoned to the diner, I had a voice recorder in my bag. I turned it on for self-defense, but unexpectedly, I discovered that Nancy was the affair partner from my divorce 3 years ago. I had recorded everything, and even this phone call was being recorded. Regardless of what you say, you'll face the consequences of your actions, I stated firmly. If necessary, I would use these recordings as evidence to make Nancy and Jason pay. I included the lawyer's business card with the photos I sent you. Please communicate through him from now on. Without listening to Nancy's rebuttal, I hung up the phone. With the click of the call ending, I felt like I had finally closed the chapter on my divorce from 3 years ago. Thanks to the lawyer introduced by my husband, I managed to get nearly the desired amount of damages from Jason and Nancy. Nancy was disowned by her family after the damages issue came to light, and a stalker confronted Jason's company, exposing the affair. Consequently, Jason lost his social standing and the support of Nancy's parents. Even now, it seems Jason and Nancy are having a tough time dealing with the affair partner turned stalker. My husband consoled me, "You've had a rough start since we moved. I want to cherish this kind-hearted my husband who still offers me a gentle smile despite the trouble I caused him this time. I look forward to enjoying the peaceful times that have finally arrived, together with him." I'm Sophia. I'm 45 years old. I married my husband, who is 2 years younger than me, 15 years ago. Sophia bought a house recently, didn't she? We met at a party, and a friend who was with us casually mentioned something that worked in my favor. Despite being older, I received a passionate pursuit from my husband. Initially, I was skeptical. But I was completely charmed by his friendly smile and his kind and smart behavior when we went on a date, just the two of us. Having never been in a serious relationship with a man before, I quickly fell head over heels for him. I wanted to be liked by him, so I tried hard to embody the ideal image of a woman that men desire. Fortunately, I didn't mind housework, and having lived alone for a long time, it wasn't too hard to act like a domestic woman. After a year of dating, I happily accepted his proposal, and we got married. Then, at his request, I changed my job from a full-time employee to a part-time. The efforts I made to win his heart ended up backfiring in ways I could never have imagined. At that time, I couldn't have foreseen what was to come. It all started on a day when I came home late from work for the first time after we got married. Suddenly, the weather turned bad, and I was running home. I regretted leaving the laundry outside. With some regret, I opened the front door. And there were my husband's shoes already. He must have come home early today. That's good. It had only started raining recently, so the laundry should be safe. I entered the house, relieved. "I'm home. Welcome back." Huh? What's with this sullen voice? When I looked, my husband was sitting on the sofa with a sulky face, watching TV, and the laundry was piled up beside him in a messy state. About the laundry. Yeah. Thanks for bringing it in. Don't hang it outside in this kind of weather. Aren't you embarrassed to make your husband do the housework? What? Gratitude stuck in my throat. As I stood there, bewildered, my husband let out an obvious sigh. "What do you think I had you switch to part-time work for?" "It's so you can be a proper wife and manage the household chores. If you're my wife, you need to take care of these things properly." How outdated. And it was sudden rain, after all. But back then, I was completely smitten with him. And it was none other than myself who had portrayed the image of a domestic woman capable of handling household chores. I swallowed my complaint and agreed. I looked at the talisman a friend had given me for times like this, holding on to my frustration. My heart gradually calmed down. At that time, I couldn't bring myself to dislike my husband. A year later, we had a beautiful baby girl. It was a blessing that my parents' house was close by, and we received their support. My husband doted on our daughter, but that was it. He hardly ever helped with housework or childcare, but back then, our daughter was very attached to her indulgent father. I guess it's better than nothing that he played with her. Fortunately, my husband's salary covered our living expenses. When our daughter turned 3, I sent her to daycare and started working part-time again. And I began to use my salary to find ways to make things easier for myself. My husband wasn't one to interfere in the methods of housework or childcare since he didn't do them himself. Every time I got irritated by complaints about the house being messy or dinner being late, I reminded myself that he was just a big child who brought home the money, and that helped me maintain my peace of mind. Despite some grievances, we've been living fairly harmoniously as a typical family of 3. It happened one Saturday, after our daughter had started middle school. Not long after I had dropped our daughter off at her club activities, my husband's phone rang. Judging by the leaked conversation, it seemed to be his mother on the other end. He was scratching his head and nodding along to what seemed like a serious matter. I waited until the phone call ended before asking, "Is something wrong?" "Yeah, do you think we could let my mom and dad stay with us for a while?" "Excuse me?" According to him, the apartment where his parents lived was set to be demolished, and they needed a place to stay until they found a new home. With their age and concerns like heat shock or tripping hazards, it's not easy for them to just pick any place. That's okay, right? I understood what he meant. And I got where his parents were coming from. But, his parents. Feeling uneasy inside, I nonetheless nodded in agreement. What else could I do? In front of my husband, I couldn't possibly say anything negative about his parents. A month later, the in-laws arrived with a moving truck. They brought in a ton of belongings and explored the house as if it were their own, then let out a sigh. It's quite cramped, isn't it? That's because of all your stuff. I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue and forced a smile. I opened the sliding doors that connect to the living room to show them. For now, I've cleared out the bedroom on the first floor for you. Please feel free to use it as your own room until you find a new place. It seems like it might be a bit chilly in here. The room is equipped with an air conditioner, so please feel free to use it if necessary. While she spread out her belongings with a look of dissatisfaction, the father-in-law took it upon himself to open the fridge. Excuse me? What? We'll be living here for a while, right? What's wrong with opening my own home's fridge? Well, yes, but they shouldn't have been here more than a handful of times. Wouldn't it have been nice to say something before rifling through the fridge? I drink 3 beers a day. I'll let it go today, but make sure to keep them cold for me from now on. Understood. This is why I didn't want it to happen. They are, to put it nicely, old-fashioned folks who believe that the elderly deserve respect. They unconditionally believe that men are superior to women and that it's only natural for men to be prioritized. Next time, let's have a boy. That was the first thing they said when our daughter was born. The problematic part is that they dote on their son, my husband, who reverts to childlike behavior in their presence. Fortunately, since their home was far away, dealing with them was previously limited to just enduring one day during the New Year and Easter holidays. But the thought of this extending for an indefinite period was disheartening. It's disheartening, but there's no helping it. I was optimistic, thinking it would just be a few months of endurance, especially with the moving season coming up. However, my hopeful assumptions would soon be completely shattered. Sophia, I've been meaning to ask, is this all we're having for dinner? After a while of living together, my mother-in-law asked with a furrowed brow. Yes. Is there something wrong with it? What's with this cheap lunch set-like menu? While it might be lacking in variety, the soup is packed with vegetables, and the pickles are homemade. Nutritionally, there shouldn't be any issues. Grandma, Mom starts cooking dinner after she comes home from work. I think that should be enough. In response to the daughter's gentle support, the mother-in-law snapped back sharply. Children who know nothing shouldn't interfere in adult conversations. I'm saying this for your and your father's benefit, you know? Yeah, that's right. Since you always have weekends off from your part-time job, you could at least prepare some meals in advance. The husband agreed. She nodded in satisfaction at her son's response. Due to being constantly roped into catering to the whims of my in-laws, like being asked to buy beer or to add more blankets because the room is cold, I haven't had the time to cook. If you understand, then go back to your studies promptly. If you want to speak so boldly, do it after you get into a university you can boast about to others, she said coldly. After hearing her harsh words, my daughter uncomfortably put down her chopsticks and quickly went upstairs to her room. Seeing my daughter's behavior, she complained about her manners, making me sigh. Do they really think she'll just stay quiet after being spoken to like that? After all, there are far worse manners to be found. Hey, that's it. Go, run. The grandfather, with a beer in one hand and chips on the side, took over the TV area, loudly enjoying a baseball game. I frowned at him, who was excitedly spitting while sitting with one knee on the sofa. Ever since my in-laws arrived, the top priority in the household has been the elder and male, my father-in-law. Next in line are my husband, mother-in-law, and then, me and my daughter. Sure, there might be situations where such a pecking order within a household is important. But how about the feelings of my daughter, who's been pushed aside and had her life upended by our freeloading in-laws? They spend their days as they please, regardless of whether it's a weekday or weekend. And they neither look for a new place nor contribute to the household in any way, including financially. I once asked them to contribute a little financially. When we were raising our son, we never once asked him for money. Are you, even if by marriage, really trying to extort money from your parents? I was yelled at hysterically. It made no sense. Moreover, after that, they wouldn't hear any of it and seemed to be splurging on hot spring trips and shopping with the money they saved. My daughter and I are nearing our limits. This weekend, as I was about to have a day off, I planned to send my daughter to my parents' house for safety. And after making sure my in-laws had gone to sleep, I cautiously brought up the topic to my husband. Hey, since your parents came, our daughter spends more time in her room. And the cost of food and utilities is higher. This is our home, yours, mine, and our daughter's. Could you talk to your parents about being a little more considerate? Huh? Oh, well, Dad and Mom will be moving out soon. Just bear with it for a little longer. My husband barely looked up from his phone, giving a vague response. Lately, he seems to be addicted to a phone game, always glued to his phone whenever he has a moment. He's been coming home late due to work and has even started working on weekends. Just the other weekend, he rushed off to a sudden business trip. Are you even listening? Yeah, I'm listening. I wonder what's so fascinating about that game. Just as I tried to sneak a peek at his phone, he abruptly stood up, hiding the screen as if it was something secretive. What are you doing? It's my privacy. Sure, a phone is a private thing. But is it really that shocking to have someone see a game screen? What are you hiding? And nothing. Nothing? Then let me see. I'm curious about what kind of phone game has you so hooked. No, because, well, my husband fiddled with his phone behind his back. Could that be why? Suddenly, a message notification sound came from the previously silent phone. It seems the silent mode was accidentally turned off. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Just because it's Friday night, is it normal to be messaging at this hour? We're not teenagers, after all. Suspicious. It seems like you've received a message. Why don't you check it? I said this with a gentle smile. My husband glanced at his phone screen and forced a grin. It's, work-related. I should head to bed soon, I have work tomorrow, oh. On his way to the bedroom, the phone slipped from his hand. I quickly picked it up and glanced at the screen, where I saw a message from Emily saying, looking forward to tomorrow. I love you too. In a panic, my husband found me holding his phone right in front of him. What's this job that involves having fun with a girl? Who's Emily? I love you too, means you replied the same? My bad feeling was confirmed. My husband's eyes darted around for a moment, but then he slumped down as if resigning himself. I'm sorry. It was just meant to be a bit of fun. To put it bluntly, my husband was having an affair. The whole addicted to a phone game was a blatant lie. The other woman was a junior colleague from his company, and of course, the weekend work and business trips were lies too. My head spun from this unexpected betrayal. I thought I had been fully supporting my husband with work, house chores, and parenting. Something inside me snapped at my husband's attempt to brush it off with a silly laugh. You think it's forgivable just because it wasn't serious? Enough already. Startled by my raised voice, my in-laws woke up and appeared, rubbing their sleepy eyes. What's all this about? Perfect timing. Let's inform them about their precious son's deeds. I have something to tell you guys. I detailed the facts I had just discovered to my in-laws. My husband sat shrunk, like a scolded child. I didn't care if it seemed childish to tattle to my in-laws. They, along with my husband, should feel some shame. After finishing my impassioned explanation, I took a deep breath. That's when the father-in-law muttered, seemingly uninterested. Is that all? What? It's just a fling, right? A fling or two is just a man's nature. If you get upset over this, how will you survive the future? I can't stand this anymore. That's it. A woman would surely understand how I feel. I turned my gaze from him, who was picking his ear, to her, and was astounded. To my shock, she was comforting my husband by rubbing his back. What a misfortune to have your phone snooped on and to be yelled at. You used to be such a homely and sweet woman when you first came to greet us. And now you've turned into such a nagging wife. No wonder he wanted to have some fun. Mom, do you understand? I just wanted a bit of excitement. My husband looked up and nodded eagerly. With a sigh of exasperation, she declared, "Don't make a hysterical scene over something so trivial. If he cheated, it's because you lack appeal." I was speechless. Living as if nothing happened, or rather, defending their son who cheated, was something I couldn't stand any longer. I had thought of enduring until my daughter was an adult, but I had reached my limit. "Let's get a divorce." I pulled out my amulet, a pre-filled divorce paper I had kept from my younger days. My husband looked at his parents with a pleading, puppy-like gaze for help. They snorted disdainfully. "We think it's fine if you two split up. You're talented and handsome. You'll have no shortage of suitors in the future. The person you're with now is young, right? You can expect a son from her. Girls are just no good, all talk and no action." I watched to see what my husband would do after being spoken about his daughter in such a manner, but he just smirked as if he had an epiphany. "Yeah, that's true. Our daughter used to be so cute, but now she treats me like air. Maybe starting a new family and starting over is one option." Unbelievable. It was my husband who started neglecting our daughter first. As she grew up and became more intelligent and less adorable in some aspects, my husband began to find her bothersome. It's absurd for a father who hardly listens and interacts whimsically to expect to be liked. Any affection I had left for my husband was rapidly disappearing. "Right, you admitted to cheating, didn't you? Just so you know, in the divorce, I'll be asking for a fair share of the assets." My husband's hand froze as he reached for the pen. She grabbed his hand. "Asset division? Why should my son pay such a large sum when you're the reason for the affair? Rather than paying that, don't agree to the divorce." Despite their absurd logic, it looked like a 3-against-1 situation from the outside. My husband smirked, feeling secure in his position. "That's right. The divorce can't happen without my agreement. If you want a divorce, you'll have to respect our opinions too." That was the last straw. "All right. I've had enough. Everything about them is unbearable." My patience had finally run out. "Understood. Instead of asset division, I'll just take what I bought. You can record this as a verbal agreement if you want." They visibly relaxed. "Get everything sorted before you change your mind," she said, leading the way as we all opened our voice memo apps on our phones. I repeated what I just said into the app, and my husband readily agreed. Here's to the start of a new life. Eagerly, my husband began filling out the divorce papers. Late that night, after the three of them had gone to bed, I sent a message to my daughter outlining our plans. I breathed a sigh of relief at my daughter's "okay" response. "Don't have any regrets. Be prepared." Then, I hurriedly searched for a new place. The divorce has been successfully on the process. Naturally, I secured custody of my daughter. Today is the day my daughter and I leave this house. I was busy preparing for the move. They became even more unruly, starting their drinking early in the day. "Can't wait to get away from here." My daughter, who had long since grown tired of my in-laws, had already finished packing her belongings. I didn't have many personal belongings. No surprise there. Since getting married, I hardly ever shopped for fashion or entertainment for myself. It was about time for the moving company to arrive. "It's good that you don't have much stuff. Saves on moving costs," the mother-in-law said with a smirk as she poked at the packed boxes. My daughter and I exchanged looks and burst out laughing. "What are you talking about? We ordered the biggest truck available." Ignoring her, I walked over to the refrigerator and yanked out the power cord with force. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? This is something I bought, so..." I took out the massive amount of drinks and food that were inside and piled them up right there. Of course, the contents of the freezer were no exception. The floor got a bit wet, but that was no longer my concern. She grabbed my arm. "I'm busy right now." I shook her off with a snap and proceeded to unplug the appliances, moving anything that could be moved. Microwave ovens, electric kettles, toasters. Along with washing machines, robotic vacuums, and dishwashers. I gave a bright smile to my stunned husband. To reduce the burden of household chores, I've poured most of my salary into these appliances. Didn't you notice? Yes. Most of the appliances in the house were purchased by me. But that's not all. Mom, I got it. My daughter came down from the second floor, holding the ceiling light. Thanks. Next, please take care of the first floor. My daughter took out a step stool and reached for the living room light. My husband and father-in-law seemed unable to grasp the situation. Because they were drunk in the middle of the day. Can't help it. I'll explain it to them. To add one more thing, the built-in air conditioner, lights, and the large furniture in the house were originally bought and used by me. Did you forget? Hearing this, my husband seemed to come back to his senses. Please, stop. Please. There's no way I'm stopping. I opened the bedroom and opened the wardrobe that was there. At some point, it had been filled to the brim with my in-laws' clothes. I'm only taking what I bought. Without any discussion, I grabbed the clothes and threw them on the floor. Among them were high-brand items I had never seen before, but that was of no concern to me. I emptied the wardrobe, then the bookshelves, and the display shelves in turn. Ah, my vanity. When I opened the drawer, it was haphazardly filled with what must have been my mother-in-law's cosmetics. Such a shame, considering there were many department store brands. It's too much trouble to take them out one by one. Right. Here we go. I flipped the drawer over. In no time, it was empty. Phew, that's refreshing. Her face, as she hurriedly gathered the cosmetics, was pale. Mom, the movers are here. My daughter called out to me loudly. Show them in. Have them move everything quickly, please. She cheerfully addressed the movers. She was much more adult than the adults in front of me, who were just flustered. It's a bit messy, but please don't mind and carry on. The movers, true professionals, proceeded without hesitation. The house was being emptied at an incredible speed. No. What remained in the house were a few pieces of furniture and a large amount of food and entertainment items that had nowhere to go. In any case, almost nothing essential for living was left. Well then, see you later. After sending off the truck with the movers, my daughter and I took a moment to catch our breath after finishing the job. I received an envelope from her and suggested she go to her grandparents' house for now. At that moment, I was yelled at from behind. After encouraging my startled daughter to go ahead, I turned around. It wasn't just because of the alcohol. My in-laws and husband were shaking with anger, their faces red. How could you do something so terrible? I was just keeping my promise. More importantly, you all should hurry up and get your moving process done. The three members of my husband's family let out a foolish sound. It's exasperating. Have you forgotten that too? I am the owner of this land and house. My husband's face turned pale in an instant. You mean, you're taking the house too? Ding dong. Correct. The land and the house have already been sold. Despite their correct guess, they seemed more to have their legs give out than to rejoice. It's strange, isn't it? Well, it's only to be expected. You can't just do something like that. Look, I bought this house. I am also the owner. I've been paying the mortgage since we got married. You didn't contribute at all. So why do you think you have a say in selling it? In fact, whether they lived with me or not, I could proceed with the sale on my own. I wasn't breaking any public rules. Above all, our home was practically empty now. I couldn't imagine them being able to buy back the original level of furniture and appliances and live as they used to. Especially after their continuous squandering. Don't worry. You had a cute girlfriend, right? You could ask her for help. At his false cheer, I snorted. Feel free to do as you like, but I don't think she'll have any money for you. I've filed for compensation from her. I wonder if this is what they mean by a deer caught in headlights. But, that's not what we agreed on. It's exactly what we agreed on. I said I wouldn't claim compensation from you. After that, I hired a lawyer and contacted Emily from your company. She might have been a dreamer suited for you, but her parents, unlike yours, were reasonable. Was it a week ago? They admitted they had spoiled their precious daughter too much and agreed to pay up. At my words, the blood drained from my husband's face. No way. He hurriedly tried to contact someone on his phone. But the voice that came through, although it was a woman's, was mechanical. "Sorry, the number you have called is no longer available." As they stood there bewildered, I approached them and handed over the envelope I received from my daughter. "Here, this is from her." "No way. It's a letter from her." Of course, she would, considering her father and grandparents are in trouble. My husband's face lit up. But no one said anything about a letter. They eagerly opened the envelope and were shocked to see the contents. This is... Right. It's about child support. It was prepared through a lawyer and has solid legal standing. You said I didn't have to pay any property division or alimony. Ah. Did you notice? I hadn't decided anything about child support. After all, the right to receive child support belongs to the child. My husband's mouth opened and closed in silence. That child's father is you. She said she would definitely get into a university that she could be proud of in front of others. You're responsible for paying until she graduates from college. They were completely dejected. It's the least bit of kindness I could offer. I left a brochure I got from the movers in front of the three of them and left the scene. A month passed, and just as the proceeds from the sale of the land were safely deposited into my account, I began receiving desperate emails from my husband, pleading for reconciliation. According to him, my phone call exposed his affair with his girlfriend at work. The woman he was involved with resigned after losing her place. My husband was demoted and stripped of the position he had built up over the years. Now, he lives in a rundown company house in the countryside with his family of 3, huddled together. Moreover, not only did my husband and father-in-law, who had been lazy about household chores, but also my mother-in-law, who had lived at her own pace every day, were unable to perform the household tasks that my husband and father-in-law idealized, leading to daily quarrels. Their room has become filled with junk and trash, making decent living nearly impossible. Karma, isn't it? Due to his persistence, I blocked his messages and set his emails and calls to be automatically rejected, ensuring no further contact. By the way, I'm back to being a full-time employee, and my daughter is living happily and freely. Our room might be a bit smaller, but our furniture and appliances are state-of-the-art. With my daughter's help, household chores are almost non-existent. My daughter is working hard in both her club activities and studies. Despite what my mother-in-law said, she insists on working hard for her future. It seems my husband is living with his family, and I might return to my parents' home when my contract is up for renewal. My parents have always adored my daughter, their granddaughter, and she loves my parents in return. They wouldn't mind us living together. With the alimony and the proceeds from the land sale, it might be nice to remodel my parents' house to make it more comfortable and create a better environment for my parents and daughter. I opened my dresser and took out the brand new cosmetics my daughter and I recently bought together. I applied a calm shade of lipstick to my lips. In this era of a 100-year lifespan, my life is just beginning. The person reflected in the mirror looked happy. Of course, I'll continue to be happy.